I'd like to welcome you to the Predestined Show, visually transcribing national and international gospel artists, bringing you guests such as Keith Wonderboy Johnson, Everett Jake, Alabama Girls, and more. Exclusive energy-packed 30 minutes with Lady of Gospel.
Welcome to the Predestined Gospel Show. I have Tasha Wilson, recognizably known as Tasha W. Tasha M. Dr. Tasha Wilson. I'm sorry. Messenger of Hope. She's an author, entrepreneur, a transformational speaker. She helps Manili, I can never get that word right. uh, Millennium women unlock the treasures to that within, confronts pitfalls from the past, and explore the power of fearlessness. Tasha has been featured on podcasts across the United States, Australia, New Zealand. In 2015, Tasha founded the Royalty Refined Movement, a community network that fosters sisterhood centered around self discovery, personal development, and freedom. In 2018, Tasha joined the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Um, is it RAIN? Speaker Bureau to promote continual awareness and advocacy regarding the effects of sexual violence. Tasha's latest book, Recognize Your Opponent When Your Greatest Enemy Is Your Inner Me, is currently on the campus of Johnson C. Smith University as a university-wide incentive to facilitate discussions. It is a resource utilized for readers to learn tools and strategize in addressing imposter syndrome. Tasha was recently featured in Voyage Baltimore Magazine as one of Baltimore's inspiring stories. Although she wears many hats, Tasha's zeal is found in helping millennial women get unstuck by mastering the inner critic to authentically live a fulfilling life. Welcome to our show, Tasha.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And she brings to us hope. It's her story, and it is he optimized pain efficiently, right? Effectively, I'm sorry. So tell us about hope.
Yeah, so when you are in a dark place and you're experiencing something that's uncomfortable and hurtful and harmful, hope is like the farthest thing away from your mind. And so for me, my life as I knew it always consisted of pain. So I thought that there was no expected end to that. I just felt like everything that I was connected to was cancerous because I come in optimistic. I'm thinking, okay, maybe this will be different, or, maybe I'll be surprised, right? And then it would end up with hurting me in the end. And so for me, I realized that the lens I viewed life was so filtered that I honestly didn't see myself outside of my current circumstance. And so the loss of my father at the age of 16, it hit me hard. My family was a family of four. We were close knit. Our family was so large that everywhere I went on the Eastern Shore, they knew who my parents were. They knew who my uncles and aunts were. That's just how it was. And my dad was always in the community. So everyone knew him. And so for his death to be so public, it really stripped away the privacy our family once knew. And so for me, I learned early on what boundaries were, but I didn't understand them. And so a lot of people think, I went to school to better myself, which was part of it, but honestly, it was to run. I wanted to go somewhere and hide. I wanted to go somewhere where nobody knew my backstory, nobody knew who I was related to, and no one could, you know, label me from the label that I already carried with me. And so dealing with life and the labels that others have placed on me, I then allowed that to become my identity. And so it wasn't until after the sexual assault that I knew I had to make a change. I knew something had to be done differently because the way that I was running in circles wasn't helping. I just kept going after cycle, entertaining dead relationships because I felt like I didn't deserve happiness. I felt like I wasn't any good. I felt like I wasn't useful to God because I felt like if he really loved me, why did he allow these things to happen? And so for me, it had to start with my mindset shift. I really had to transform my thoughts because in order for me to activate my faith and really activate my posture of promise, I had to start combating the negative thoughts that were in my mind. And so that's where that ounce of hope came in, where God was telling me, even though you had a destiny for your life, it did not measure up to what I already intended for you. These things had to happen because it was part of the greater purpose and plan for your life. If you did not experience these things, then you would continue to limit your potential. You would continue to hide who you are. You would continue to minimize your voice. And so, as ironic as this sounds, it was my pain that really catapulted me into my purpose, but then ultimately uncovered who I was always destined to be.
Mm. Wow. And oftentimes that's what we do. You know, we run, we hide, you know, it's off. It's like we want to just go run and just, you know, crawl up under a rock,
Yeah.
trying to get away because, you know, just like we feel embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
you know, humiliated, like, you know, we don't want to be seen,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because in our minds, like, you know, we're devastated in
Mm-hmm.
one sense. We're devastated. We lost, you know, we feel like the whole world has been just snatched from under our feet.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we're feeling that loss, that grief,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we just don't know which way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But then all in all, we know we don't know that God have us
Yeah.
because he's carrying us. We
Yeah.
don't know that.
Mm-mm.
No, he's carrying us, but we don't know that.
Right. Right.
So we're walking, you know, feeling like we're all alone through this whole process. But we're like this. I like to use that demonstration like the butterfly. I love the butterfly. I love it because that's what, you know, I felt like you know, coming up, like I was this, you know, the caterpillar
Mm-hmm.
in the cocoon, you know, just refining and going through
Yeah.
the process,
Mm-hmm.
you know, coming out. And at the end of all of that, I turned out to be this beautiful butterfly,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because that's what he created us to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
whether we, you know, look in the mirror and we, you know, before we saw something different,
Mm-hmm.
we looked at ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but all along he looked at us and he saw, you know, what he made, what he created. uh,
Yeah.
he saw beautiful, he saw beauty
Mm-hmm.
because that's what he see. He don't see any color when he's looking at it. He don't see any color. He
Yeah.
just see just something beautiful that he created.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But until we realize, you know, until we see what God see, until, we get in the word and read
Mhm.
it, study to
Mhm.
show ourselves approved, rightly
Yeah.
dividing the word of truth.
Mhm.
We can't see it.
Mm-mm.
Because at the time we're hurting, we distraught.
Yeah.
Don't nobody care, you know.
Mhm.
But until we figure out, the real.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the enemy will do things in such a way to keep you isolated.
Mhm.
So now your vision is so cloudy, you can't hear anything else.
No, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing at all, nothing.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's just interesting, like whenever you deal with trauma, and like even now as I reflect, knowing where I once was and then knowing where I am now. When I was in it, I didn't see my way out of it. But it's like how you exercise everything else, you have to exercise that brain muscle to say, okay, who were you before this? You know, find that person and how can you evolve from that? And I think that's where we often get caught up. That's where we get stuck. That's where we feel contained. And in the middle of the process, we are so captured by what's happening to us that we begin to victimize ourselves that we forgot that we've already won. And it's like you have to remind yourself, who am I in Christ? Who does he say I am? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters, not seeking external validation from other people. And so for me, it's so important that I continue to give back to other women and say, I know what it feels like. I was in your position. I understand. This isn't something that I've read um, in the newspaper. This isn't something that I've seen on TV, but I've lived this. So I know exactly how you feel. And it's so amazing because the very things that I hated about myself are the very things that God is using to bless others. I've always been extremely shy. I've always been to myself. I've always been soft spoken. And God is like, no, that's the weapon I need you to use to bring people to me.
Mhm. I wouldn't know that looking at you or listening to you talk.
Everyone says that. Like, even some of my friends, they're like, it's this whole metamorphosis. They're like, who are you?
Nope, I
That's why
wouldn't.
when you said the butterfly, I resonated with that so much. I did.
I wouldn't know. And people look at me the same way, like, I just sit back. I'm kind of more like an observer.
Yeah.
And people, and when I tell them I do the TV show.
Hmm.
What? You don't even talk. What? For real? Yes.
I'm just taking it all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised myself when my manager came to me and she was like, I want you to do, the TV show. I want you to host. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't talk. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be good at doing that.
Hmm.
And it took me a while. And I don't know if you went and you watched some of the episodes before and
Hmm.
how I was talking when I was with my co-host, and he mostly would do all the talking, and I would just sit back and I would just be, and I wasn't doing no talking. And it wasn't until my sister passed away in October, like a
Hmm.
light switch went off.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, a light switch went off, and I was like, okay. And it was like it just her, like, I don't know if something within her transferred in me,
Hmm.
and I've been going ever since. And every
Yeah.
because she was pushing, she used to push me before, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't, I wouldn't budge, I wouldn't do nothing. And so it's like now I've been in full force ever since.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's like she's still encouraging you, even though she's not physically here.
mhm,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm just surprising myself.
Mhm.
But I just thank God, every day, every
Yeah,
day.
yeah. And that's what people don't understand. They see us and they see strength, they see resilience, but they don't recognize it's not our own, like, at all. Because I know me, if all of this were up to me, I would continue to run and I would continue to hide.
Yes, because that's what I did for a long time.
Yeah.
Hide. I was
Mhm.
hiding.
Yeah.
I was hiding. Yes. So tell me okay, so you said you joined let me see, the book. No, the movie. No, not the movie. Look, I'm all over the place.
It's okay.
Oh my God. Tell me about the when your greatest enemy is your inner me. That's what I want to know about.
Yeah. So that book is really it talks about me fighting to be me, the authentic me versus what the world wants to see. And so self-sabotage was something that I was always accustomed to, aside from running away from everything and hiding and not wanting to be seen. I would purposely mess up stuff because I didn't think I deserved happiness. I didn't think I deserved blessings. And it's interesting because I really allowed the enemy to get in my head. And so with that book, it really talks about how I lived beneath my purpose, how I lived a meaningless life. But yet I had a smile on my face that nobody would know. That gets exhausting, after a while, when you're like, okay, am I going to continue to pretend to be someone I'm not? Or am I going to really give God my complete yes? And so with that, I really had to unlearn behaviors from childhood. I really had to kind of go back and say, what was the foundation? What were the roots that no one decided to uproot? What was going on that, it continued to be a generational thing? Why didn't anyone address this? Because a lot of the stuff that I carried had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with the people who came before me, but it was unresolved. And so a lot of people talk about traditions and things like that that get passed on, but so does the generational trauma if it's not resolved. And so for me, when I was dealing with insecurities and not really having confidence in myself or, being easy to critique who I am, I noticed that was something that was generational. I noticed that a lot of times the women in my family, on the outside, they were strong. On the outside, they were self-sufficient, but on the inside, they were wounded. And so subconsciously, a lot of that got passed on to me. And so even though I had a father who affirmed me, I lost sight of that once he was no longer there, when he passed away. And so it's so easy when things are no longer within reach that you can forget about them. And so that's why it was important for me to really unpack everything that once destroyed me. And so on the cover of that book, I'm literally inside of a box. Like, I climbed inside of that box for the photo when I said, listen, I need people to understand how uncomfortable this is, how it feels, how closed off it, looks like, how you really feel concealed and confined in a space that you've outgrown, but you're too scared to step outside of it. And so I take everyone on a journey of the tools and tips of what I really had to do. And a lot of that went back to the word of God. It had to go back to who God said I was, who God said I was destined to be, and really include that along with experiences. So each box that I continue to face, instead of moving them, I use this analogy of when you move to a new house, right? And you have these boxes, you label them, and one is for the kitchen, one's for the living room, things like that. When you first get there, you're excited, you're looking at this new territory, but then you're like, okay, I'm gonna unpack these boxes a little later. They sit there, be month 3, they still sitting there. Then you know what? Let me move the boxes for the kitchen into the living room. Okay, now let me move them to the bedroom. But it's like the boxes are still there. Everything that you decided to not unpack is still there. So it makes me think about seasons in my life. What I didn't deal with in the spring, I'm now taking it into my fall. And it's like the only way that you can really unpack or dismantle anything, you got to destroy it. And so I talk about it's a bigger difference when you actually destroy the box instead of moving them somewhere else or just unpacking the contents inside. Because when you don't handle your mess, it's going to handle you. And so, one thing I really talk about is the importance of addressing that, getting the help that you need, being surrounded by like-minded people that can take you where you need to go. Get back in prayer, read your word, because you can't carry it by yourself. You can't, and you're going to burn out if you do. And that was something that happened to me. I'm like, I can't keep running. I can't keep living my life like this. I can't, shortchange who God has created me to be. It's a slap in his face. It's disrespectful. It's saying that who I am was a mistake. And I know that not to be true.
Yeah. And you will carry those. When you don't dismantle it, you'll carry that into relationships, into everything, that jobs, wherever you go, you're going to carry that stuff.
Yes.
Those things. And lo and behold, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Been miserable at jobs knowing it had nothing to do with your purpose.
Because that's anger, that's bitter. That's the 17. It can stir up the 17 works of the flesh.
Yes. Yep. Yes. And, when you are captured by the pain and by the trauma, it's easy to point the finger to somebody else. But when you really take the personal responsibility, that's when you really create room for God to move. And that's what I had to learn. Yeah.
So how can you encourage our viewers today? What can you say to our viewers to encourage them?
Yeah. So to the viewers, no matter what you're dealing with in life, no matter what you're currently facing, know that God has not forgotten about you. Your value is not diminished because of your circumstance. You are always worthy. You always have been. You were loved. You were chosen. Your life has meaning. You have purpose inside of you. Do not allow the dysfunction that's going on to disrupt or delay the promises that God has in store for you.
Okay. That's good. So what are do you have any more endeavors that you're going to be doing? What does your 2022 and 2023 look like? Are you going to be writing some more chapters in the book? Are you going to be doing a whole book by yourself?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I actually just published another book. And this one is called Shatterproof, Refocusing the Lens. As you can see, I always like to have a title that kind of draw people in, like, what's this about? So I've always been a storyteller. Even when I was younger, I didn't realize the gift of that until I got older. But with this book, it really talks about finding contentment within, not yielding to the pressures of what society tries to give you when it comes to relationship status. And so I think there's a lot of talk about when you're single and then it's like, okay, you get married, but no one talks about the process in between. What does that look like? What does that introspection consist of? And I think when we find value in who we are and discovering who we are, then we won't settle for less than the standards that we deserve. And so that book really talks about being empowered and being inspired where you are in your journey. And, if you may not be married yet, you're still purposeful and useful to God. You can still empower somebody else and say, you know what? Being single is not a deficiency or a death sentence, but in this moment, this is who I'm learning who I am. This is what I'm discovering more about what I can bring to the world, because you have to know who you are before you become partnered with purpose, because you don't want to put an unexpected, expectation on your partner and try to get them to fill a void that only God can. And so that's what this book is really about. Because I've always asked, well, shouldn't you be married by now? Or why aren't you married? Those kind of things. And so that book just really flips the perspective to not look at it as if I'm lacking, because I'm not. God is still supplying all of my needs, but he needs to make sure that as I'm being refined, my partner is too.
Absolutely. That's good. I can't wait to
Yes, I was like, because it was something I worked on for a little bit, and then God was like, hold on, wait a little bit. And I was like, okay. And then I worked on the other book about, recognize your opponent. And then God brought me back to this and said, okay, now it's time.
I can't wait. And it's good to be refined and it's good to wait, because when you wait for that right one that God's going to send you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. What a
Yeah.
blessing.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Because you know he's going to send you somebody great.
Yeah.
He's going to send you who you've been praying for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything is going to line up
Mm-hmm.
with his word.
Yeah.
You will not lack for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing at all.
I'm so excited. It's kind of like getting a birthday gift. Like,
right. I'm sitting here, I'm getting excited for you. Just by you just saying, you sit here saying, I'm just, being refined. It's like, you're waiting for God to refine you, and even your mate to be,
Mm-hmm.
because you're a queen and you wait for your king.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you know what you bring to the table, and you know who you are. Hey.
Yeah. And so, just like you said, you like it's your birthday and you wait for your gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wait for God, what God has for you.
Yeah.
And what a lesson that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like a kid waiting for some candy.
Right. Ice cream. It's like, okay, and that's what excites me the most, because I know that my husband will be tailor-made for me. It's not just random selection,
Yes, I'm excited. It ain't even me. Look. But you know what? That's what he said. Be excited for your sister.
Yes.
You're next.
Okay. That's what he's saying. I'm telling you. And look, when it happens, I'm going to be like, look, remember this conversation?
So I am excited. Yes, I'm excited. Look, I'm not no hater. I'm excited. I'm over here excited. I'm excited for you, because I know what it's going to look like. I know what it's going to look like, and I just can't wait.
This is the Predestined Gospel Show with your host, Donita Gibson, co-host Earl Whittington, and Ann Austin, with a variety